kick off the day. I know we're running a little late. It's a slower start today, which is perfectly fine. I know a lot of us are having great meetings, great dinners. I had a great time out in this beautiful city last night. But I'm even more excited about today because we talked about a lot of traditional finance adoption yesterday and even really laid out the map and the landscape on day one, how stable coins are really evolving, the whole economy and the world forward. But today is not just about TradFi, but about evolving crypto with RWAs, right? This all started back in 2009 with Bitcoin, exploded in 2015 with Ethereum and smart contracts, but we saw many different fads since then, right? NFTs, ICOs before that, meme coins, and all kinds of other applications that are testing the capabilities of blockchain. But we all know, I think in this room, that real-world assets are such a huge opportunity set compared to what we've seen today. Hundreds of trillions of dollars going on-chain, that we have to talk about how this is going to impact the world of crypto. And in fact, we're going to be talking about the rise of tokenized equities. We're going to talk about real estate. Vaults has been a popular topic that we will continue to bring up. But more, right? Market outlook. We're going to be looking at how data is starting to play a very special role. And most importantly, we got some very special keynotes today. Probably one more important than mine, of course, is going to be Redstone at lunch, so don't go anywhere. But today, I have the pleasure of kicking us off with a very special presentation for the RWA Foundation. So this is actually, as some of you have come to learn, I am, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Herwig. You can call me Happy. And I am the organizer of this conference. I started Tokenize This back in 2023. And actually, I've been in this space since 2018, really 2017, 2016, but actively advising, consulting, promoting, and tracking the industry since. And I would say that in 2024 was that first moment I actually saw some validation. If you caught the fireside chat with Carlos Domingo yesterday, we talked a little bit about security tokens were all the hype in 2017, 2018, while ICOs were sort of on a tear. Everybody already was able to put together that, of course, we can use the same technology to package in assets, securities, right? You name it. In this case, whether the industry moved too fast or the industry wasn't ready for it, what happened was it fizzled out. In 2019, we entered the bear market, and I remember being laughed out of a room for bringing up security tokens, right? Nobody wanted to pay attention to real-world asset tokenization, which really was a term that coined itself around 22, 23. In fact, for a lot of folks from traditional finance, RWA means risk-weighted assets, not real-world assets, further complicating things, but the genie is out of the bottle. The RWA movement has come out, and as I mentioned, in 2024, I was hosting Tokenize This. I saw that validation. We saw all the big banks and asset managers come down to the conference, just like we have seen this week, and they were saying the same things, just a little less as far as they are today, right? That they are recognizing this is indeed the future operating system of finance. And so I had a realization, which is, I think it's awesome that finally Wall Street, if you will, is moving on chain and is pushing a lot of not their own clients, not their own infrastructure, but even regulatory bodies, legislators, right? Important people that need to be educated on why this is indeed a legitimate technology that will be operating as the rails of finance for trillions, if not quadrillions, right, of transactions on chain now. So Wall Street is really good at what it does. And there is actually a whole world out there of people that do not know yet about RWAs or don't even have access to financial services. And while I think it's awesome that we're about to see this technology for financial services go from 0 to 1, right, from Web 2 to Web 3, it is going to bring insane capabilities. I like to joke that actually as Americans, we have now worse access to our own capital markets on Wall Street because international investors in Europe can now get stocks on chain, they can collateralize them, they can move them between wallets near instantly. and they can even tap into DeFi as we're starting to see. But that is not something American investors can do today, which is kind of a funny thing. But there are billions of people around the world that don't have access to a bank account, that don't have access to US stocks that we're now seeing change, right? And what I believe is this technology is going to be able to bring the entire planet connected. This would never be possible with Web 2. And what we need to do is encourage the activity and advocacy to make sure that we can get the whole world on chain before Wall Street is able to basically build the position and control it has all over again. And that is by design. That is what's going to happen. So I do recognize that, a lot of the times there were barriers that now are lifted, right? All you need is a wallet and potentially even a home currency that you can turn into a stable coin, and you can now start accessing all kinds of financial opportunities like credit, like investment opportunities that used to be exclusive to Americans or hard to get, like US real estate, or other vice versa assets all around the world, right? So I'm very excited for that future. I want to see the world go on chain. We've been talking all week about some of the reasons why this is happening, right? I don't think I need to double down on, we are talking about an open system that we've seen already proven out in crypto, right? Public blockchains, the efficiencies, the effectiveness of having developers and builders be able to build openly and create that connection and add value to the network is vastly superior than someone who controls a closed network and says who's allowed to participate and wants to potentially choose how to control that ecosystem, right? I think another major point is custody. This idea that we are going from, instead of opening up an account on a website and now I'm in a database with whoever, I am now having a wallet that is able to connect to anybody and start to own my assets as opposed to be reliant on whoever my database entry is in, right? The idea that I have my USDC right there, that I can have real estate right there, my on-chain stocks right there. This is something that if you wanted to try and even underwrite or analyze the worth of your portfolio today, it would be very hard to put all those things in one balance sheet or in one system. It's usually all over the place. Well, now in a wallet, you can have crypto, you can have RWAs, you can have everything around the world. And naturally, it's faster, it's more open, and it's cheaper. And that's why this is all headed to it. What I think the biggest thing is that at the end of the day, what I was just saying is to reinforce that is that at the end of the day, open systems will win. And we're going to see a lot of closed systems continue to emerge. We're going to see a lot of them do very successfully because of the economies of scale, because of the control, the relationships that they have. But the more people that are on chain, the more builders that are building on public rails, the more assets that are accessible, the harder those closed systems will be able to compete and take advantage of what they're building. Open rails, to me, is truly the future of finance in order to onboard billions of people. We're already live with this happening, right? For those of you who don't know, we're about to approach 1 million RWA holders on chain. This is not including stable coins. So that's all RWAs, like stocks or even private credit and other things. Those 900,000 people are largely international investors or US accredited institutions, right? There's not a whole lot of retail US yet, and we're just getting started. We're only at 1 million people. Well, we have to 1,000x that number at least, and arguably we have to 10,000x that number to achieve our mission. But it's exciting. We see $300 billion plus in stable coins. Those stable coins are now able to move and transact easily into this new open ecosystem, right? That's why we talk about vaults and how actually it's making it very easy for people to participate with a stable coin into RWA activity, as an example. It's extremely exciting to know that we are about to see this number continue to grow, but at the end of the day, 1 billion people, getting them onboarded is going to take time. And as I keep sort of reiterating, Wall Street is going to move fast. They're very smart. They're going to keep growing. and they have every reason to build as much strategic advantages as they can in this industry, right? But they will never, at the end of the day, in my opinion, beat out the open rails, the open infrastructure, all regulated, right? But will beat out those closed rails. And what's happening is this narrative is now taking over. It's arguably the hottest narrative in the sector. You could say perps are getting close and up there, but right now, whether it's traditional finance institutions or even crypto natives, when you bring up the term RWA, they get it, they know it. But most of the time, as I like to say, it's misunderstood. We have two different types of tokens out there. We have the real world assets, right? The assets that we're tokenizing, what we're talking about all week. But we have crypto, digital assets that are tied to this narrative as well. And if you're not in crypto, it's very easy to grasp tokenizing stocks, tokenizing real estate, tokenizing gold. But when you're in crypto and you've been spoiled with this decentralized finance access already, the fact that you have been able to take Bitcoin or Ethereum-based NFTs or other blockchain-based ecosystems and tap into their DeFi, right? Lending protocols, AMMs, trading applications, you name it. So this idea that, hey, we're going to hand you an asset in the real world, but you can't do all of these things with it, is not really exciting for a lot of crypto natives. You know, they are already attracted to this feature set. So we need to help bridge that gap. And in fact, the digital assets are the language that crypto natives speak. So when it comes to tokens like Ondo, like Syrup, like Bricken, even Red from Redstone, right? These are crypto native assets. They don't offer rights. They don't offer dividends, protections in your exposure to the investment. They are cryptos. But they are related to the infrastructure of the RWA narrative, which means you no longer need to be KYC'd or accredited or in a certain geography to participate in this narrative or to use the narrative, right? Because that's ultimately the end game. So this is now a very fast-growing movement that we want to actually highlight, and that's what we do with the RWA Foundation, which I'm going to get into in just a little bit. But why the RWA Foundation, or why does something like that need to exist? Because right now, today, there is really no open data set. There is no open community that crypto natives can get behind. I've seen for the last 8 years, traditional finance companies, tokenization companies, or even crypto companies try to market in this way to crypto natives around RWAs and have struggled, right? And that's mostly because they're just saying, look at how great this asset is and why you should buy it on chain, versus let's talk about the narrative of trillions of dollars going on chain that you can get exposure to the same way that you got exposure to the NFTs, to meme coins, you name it, except this, we believe, has true longevity, right? This is not a fad. This is the whole world coming on chain. We need people to educate, to advocate, and to onboard. Because as I said earlier, 1 billion people is just not going to happen quickly. So the only way we can do that is by promoting, right? And we do this through an education-first mentality, right? We are not here to promote. We are not here to solicit investments. We don't pick winners. We have one mission that unites the foundation, which is to onboard the planet to RWAs, because everybody truly has a right to financial services, right? So education on why this technology is the future, why it's working, why you should own RWAs, and why you should expose yourself to the crypto assets beneath them is all part of that education plan. Advocacy is done in so many different forms: events, media, even campaigns like airdrops, for example. Those are one of the instruments that crypto natives are used to hearing and saying, hey, well, you know, that sounds pretty cool. I'm going to get an airdrop on top of buying a piece of real estate or investing in a stock or doing something with my stable coins. That rings a bell. That lets them participate in both the RWA narrative as well as owning the RWAs, right? And that's how we onboard. But at the end of the day, the goal is to get people into wallets, because once they're into wallets, eventually they can connect their identity, Eventually, they'll be able to access DeFi in a regulated way that now has access to the real world's financial assets. That's what everybody mostly here in this room is building or doing and making happen. So as I said earlier, part one, we got to get the assets on chain. But part two, we have to get all the people on chain, or only the people on chain are going to be the ones winning from this technology. We work with everybody, right? At the end of the day, as I said, we're not picking winners. The firms that have already decided to pledge to support us, because we are a membership-based organization, is across the board. Blockchains who are having assets tokenized on them, the tokenization platforms that are helping facilitate the assets going on chain, even the asset issuers, right, the ones who own them and are looking to support this cause. And in fact, I even think one day we're going to see traditional finance institutions say, hey, we recognize that open rails, decentralized finance are the future, and we're going to build our products and our infrastructure around this, as opposed to trying to build a walled garden that they can have control over. Vaults and yield, as I mentioned, are going to be one of those big ways. It's one of the easiest ways that I see to start onboarding people into RWAs. We've done a very successful job. I mentioned I sort of had this idea in 2024. We launched it actually last year in 2025 here at the conference. Today we have over 20,000 followers on X. We're doing millions of impressions. What this means is people are resonating. We have folks that are non-members of the foundation reposting our content. That's how we know we are getting the right message across. And most importantly, I actually think for the first time, people are recognizing the difference between RWAs, right, as an asset class, but also as a digital asset class, and why we need a foundation to act as a coordination layer to help make that happen, right? We still have time. These walled gardens, if you will, or these open systems are just being built right now. We are in the peak moment of the narrative where everyone's talking about RWAs. Regulation is finally starting to come in and create clarity for everyone to start participating. This is exactly the moment in time where I believe we need an organization like this to make this possible. However, we don't want to be member-driven. In fact, we want to eat our own cooking, if you will, and we want to speak the language of crypto natives. What's the best way to bring a community together on-chain? It's not through X, although that's an important channel. It's through a token itself. So we're going to be launching a DAO that ends up, again, tying back to the mission to bring people on-chain through education and onboarding and such. But I believe the unique novelty is that we are going to use RWAs to make it a self-sustainable foundation. We are going to leverage the token that we create, which is called WALLY, like Wall Street with a Y. It's an elephant that you might have seen around here or on Twitter. And what WALLY is going to do is basically work with our partners across from Leverage, across from the RWAs that we buy, in order to leverage the treasury, buy the exposure, get the excess yield, and reinvest all of it back into the endowment, into the trust, if you will. There is no money going out to token holders, right? That would make it a security token, an RWA. There are no rights within the foundation, which is going to be set up as a nonprofit, right? An ownerless entity. And at the end of the day, any excess yield will go back to the foundation supporting our mission, to go back to a community pool to vote on grants, on marketing initiatives, anything related to go back to the mission, right? And then last but not least, buybacks, right? So that we are going to buy the token that's open in the market with the excess RWA yield. And what do we do with that? We leverage that WALLY up and buy more RWAs with it, rinse and repeat, and let it compound in a safe way to, again, hopefully create a sustainable form of income so the foundation can pursue its mission. So if you like what I talked about today, and you believe in open finance for all and helping us onboard the first billion into RWAs, then please reach out or follow us on X. We are always eager to take on more members. And in the meantime, I wish everybody a wonderful last day of the conference. I want to thank everyone for being here. And of course, I want to thank all of our amazing sponsors and Redstone for putting all this together. So thank you, everybody, and let's get on with the show.